Hello, this podcast is recorded on Gadigal country and we pay our respects to the First Nations custodians of the land, both here and also wherever you're listening from. Okay,
Hi.
sorry, I feel like we have to apologise that last time we had the promise that we're going to talk about all the exciting TV that everyone's onto and then we just galloped off down a rabbit hole.
But
So
that's what
let's
we do.
jump straight in. The Diplomat Season 2.
Yep.
What do you think?
Look, it's hard for me to love it because I think in some points it's cheesy, but also I love her. So, I mean, I can't stop watching her. But I you have to remind me of the actor's name.
Kerry Russell.
Kerry Russell.
Yeah.
What is wrong with my brain? I know what's wrong with my brain. It's trying to do too many things at once. And all of a sudden, Kerry Russell just pops off the end because there's all these other things going on. Her performance in The Americans is just so mighty, and she was obviously a spy in that one. So this is Allied. She's a diplomat, and she's an American diplomat. She's working in the UK. She is enmeshed in a sort of, intelligence, security, drama.
Yeah. It opens with there's been a kind of what looks like maybe a car bombing or something in London, and her
in which her
sort
husband
of on-off again husband, the
injured.
Richard Holbrooke style diplomat's been injured.
Yeah, and they are still married, but they're very tense with each other. She has kind of eclipsed him, which is awkward. She's been made the ambassador to the UK, a job that he was probably maybe expecting, and instead they've picked her, and she's also being groomed to run for vice president. So all of a sudden, this chick who's kind of supported her husband in his diplomatic career, or they've had parallel careers, has sort of gone boom up here. He's a bit shitty about it. He's kind of there's a lot of tension there. Yeah.
And she may or may not be having some kind of romantic dalliance with the British Secretary of State.
Yeah, absolutely. There's electricity there.
So have you watched you've watched bits of it?
I've watched bits of it. I watched the whole first series. The thing that annoyed me about it was it felt a bit gauche in places. Like there was this whole kind of storyline about how, she didn't love the kind of having to wear a skirt. And, she goes to this formal function and she's got this gorgeous dress on and she keeps like tugging it and she's like, oh, I'm falling off my high heels. I don't know. I see what it was trying to do, but it felt a bit lame. Like I just thought, oh, come on. Like, Jesus Christ. Let's, But anyway, the storyline in this series about the intrigue and the bombing and the whatever it's good. I mean, she's amazing. I don't know. I can tell that it's okay.
It doesn't work for me for some reason, and I didn't like the first season either, and so
But you started watching the second one
I
anyway.
know, against my better judgment. Okay, so the reason I did it was because a lot of people seem to like it, and so I thought maybe I was, sometimes with TV you're not in the right mood at the time you're watching it. The first season I had issues with, but I persevered because I love Kerry Russell. And so I thought, all right, well, maybe season one they were ironing out their kinks, and maybe season two is good. As you know, it's on Terrain that I always love, set in London, British spy drama, blah, blah.
Yep.
As soon as I started watching it, what immediately came to my mind is I just remembered, oh, that's right. This is all the things I found annoying about it. Firstly, I think the plot it's just a hot mess of, it's not that gripping. It's kind of, you never can quite understand who's the baddie here and how's that person implicated and who's this older woman who's in a safe house somewhere and she's now showed up at this funeral. Like, it's just confusing.
Yeah.
And also, I know I often get upset about minor details, but Kerry Russell, I have literally never met an American ambassador, politician, businesswoman, anyone in a position like that who's anything other than immaculately groomed. And Kerry Russell always looks like an absolute mess, like she hasn't brushed her hair. And I find it implausible that an American woman at the ambassadorial level would look like that.
Okay, so this is interesting. You're not saying that that's putting you off her as a character. What you're saying is that someone in that position would not be like that.
As with Paddington in business class in Paddington in Peru, there's a plausibility issue. No, so I find that annoying. And also,
I love your list of things that you have a very Baroque
I must say
mind,
I had a lengthy rant with a contact who works in, let's just say, the national security space in Australia. We had a lengthy chat the other day where
Paddington?
he went on a massive rant about Black Dove. or Doves, whatever it's called,
yeah.
and about how it just enraged him, all the implausibility about it. And then he kind of went on, and then I said, look, I've actually done a rant about this exact thing on Chat 10. And he was like, right, I'll be going to track that down.
Well, it's like, I mean, you can't see your own industry depicted without being outraged. Like, I remember I used to watch The West Wing with a bunch of political staffers. Oh,
yeah, they would have hated
and they'd be like, would never happen, you know.
Totally.
Tearing their hair out. Totally. And I was just like, calm down, until Aaron Sorkin made The Newsroom. And then I'm like, well, that is bullshit. Like, that is, I'm sorry. That is bullshit now, you know.
The thing too, with Kerry Russell and the styling and stuff is the other thing I object to. There's certain cliches about women that are used often in film and TV. Oh, that reminds me of another cliche. If I forget, bring me back to it.
Right. Cliche number 2.
Cliche number 2. Okay, so the first one is that women who are, I've banged on about this before, highly accomplished and competent in their professional life, they're going to be slipping on banana peels everywhere in their personal life. I really hate that. Yeah. And then the other one is that if you're a serious
Although I'm
woman,
living proof that you can be successful at a job and also a fool.
And then also if you are a professional woman who takes her job seriously and you're interested in things like foreign policy and you've been in war zones and you've covered serious issues, that therefore that you must find everything to do with grooming and clothing and hair frivolous and a waste of your time. Yeah. And actually I don't think I think that's a real reductionist view of what women are like. And also the idea, as you said, that Kerry Russell, someone as beautiful as Kerry Russell, who's been at this elite ambassadorial level, would show up at a black tie function feeling uncomfortable in a black tie dress and tugging it up. It's just not true. And I just hate that I feel like it's a really basic kind of cliche.
Actually, listening to you talk makes me wonder whether, I feel like the series is trying a bit hard. Like it's trying to do too many storylines at once, or too many, like it's trying to rough things up to create texture.
So
like
true.
There's a bunch of characters who are like all quite idiosyncratic. And I'm like, there's too many interesting people in this cast. Like, you need boring people as well as interesting people, but it feels like every character has been made to have an interesting quirk.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, I'm sorry. A diplomatic office does not have that many quirky people.
It's a lot.
I remember once interviewing the head of ASIO who said, you know, I was like, oh, you must have incredible fun recruiting. You must have, you know, all of these kind of A-type spy personalities because obviously I have no idea about what spies are really like. And he said, no, actually, we're not looking for A-type people at all. No. We're looking for people with zero ego. We're looking for people who are very happy all their lives to tell their friends and families that they are in middle management in like the Attorney General's department.
Meanwhile, they just went to Afghanistan and snuck into a compound.
Right. Who are doing amazing things that they cannot tell anyone about. Yeah. So he said, like, we don't want anyone who is noticeable. Yeah. We want people who are happy to be boring and to be thought boring. And that is a hard thing, right?
Okay, so that brings me to another spy-related thing I'm watching, which is actually excellent and not at all like The Diplomat, and it's called Rogue Heroes.
Okay, this is on SBS.
It's on SBS On Demand. It's based on a book by Ben McIntyre. He's the guy who has somehow developed this amazing relationship with MI5 and MI6 where they've given him access to the archives. And so he wrote A Spy Among Friends about the Philby thing that got turned into the miniseries. One called Agent Sonia, multiple kind of real life events around the history of British intelligence. And so he wrote this book about the history of the SAS. How did the SAS actually start? And then this TV show's been made about it. And unlike the recruitment you're just talking about, I mean, again, I'm not entirely sure, a bit like apple cider vinegar, where's the truth begin and end? But it opens with a thing saying some of the events here seem implausible, but it is mostly true.
Right.
And so it's the Second World War.
There's a new industry in like cards that go at the beginning of shows now.
Oh, totally. Like, you know, how are we going to cover our asses?
It's a bit truthy. It's mainly, it's almost entirely true with possibly some lies. Yeah.
So what they were looking for in the original creation of the SAS, the British Army is bogged down in Africa, in Cairo. They're just getting smashed. And so their conventional ways of doing business aren't working. And so this guy called David Stern Sterling, in conjunction with another guy called Paddy Mayne, get given permission to have this unit of rogue soldiers. And what they're looking for, because they're going to be doing missions that are going to have like 50% kill rate and stuff, or fatality rate, they are looking for people who are mad, basically. They are looking for massive type A
all
personalities.
maniacs, please apply now.
Exactly, all maniacs. And so anyone that comes in who kind of immediately doesn't follow an order or speaks rudely, they're like, great, put that dude's name down. So they're looking for people who are bold, risk-taking. It was very interesting looking at the origins of it. And of course, because you think, because who else is going to go on some crazy mission where they're jumping out of a plane and, a quarter of the people are going to die on landing, and then the next quarter are going to die before they get anywhere near the enemy, and then the final half might kind of get through, and then they might get defeated. And so it kind of, you realise, of course they had to have the people that were like really pushing the boundaries with personality types. And so Paddy Mayne is this absolutely crazy and violent Irishman who's always getting into bar fights and blah, blah, blah. But the guy who's kind of running the unit's name is David Sterling. Now, did you watch Sex Education by any chance?
Yeah, not as much of it as you have. But
okay.
Yeah.
So do you remember there's a character, there's the school principal who's quite this disciplinarian figure, and he has a son who, when Sex Education starts, he's a very awkward boy, and he's kind of bullying the gay boy at school.
Right, okay, yeah.
But then it comes out
remember this,
that he's closeted gay.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the character in the TV show, but the actor, he's got this kind of slightly pathetic, snivelling quality a little bit. He's insecure and shy and whatnot. So that actor, his name's Connor Swindells. He plays David Sterling. The transformation is gobsmacking.
Wow, okay.
I can't even believe it's the same actor that's playing these.
I love it when that happens.
It was incredible. So he was this kind of insecure, awful, sort of just oppressed kid with this horrible father. And then in this show, he's this sexy, swashbuckling, bold dude with no discipline who's kind of running this mission. Anyway, it's got a few interesting. Dominic West's in it as well. It's got everything the Diplomat doesn't have. It's pacey.
Right.
It's got a great soundtrack that they use really well. They use kind of contemporary music. It's really well shot. You get emotionally invested. The Cairo scenes look fantastic. I know it drops every Saturday night. There's one whole season, and season 2's just been released, and they're dropping episode by episode.
Oh, okay. So I've got a whole season I can binge.
Yeah.
Before
it's one of my friends said it's a bit blokey. It is
amazing. Really?
Yeah, it is. There's one female character in it who's a French spy based in Cairo, but obviously the nature of the SAS and World War II, it is blokey. It's a lot of blokes. But I'm really enjoying it. It's both.
Oh, you've piqued my interest.
It's great. I think I'll definitely read the book Rogue Heroes now, having watched it. So.
You'll do a deep dive. Next minute, you'll have like Phil Jackson style, SAS archives.
I'll be just watching only SAS related.
Speaking of television or film productions that massively failed the Bechdel test.
Oh yeah.
I have watched half of Conclave. Now.
Oh yeah.
I need to advise you that I'm like really about 2/3 of the way through, and that is because I watched it on a flight. And then the flight landed.
Oh, okay. Right.
And so I haven't got to the bit, that people talk about being this amazing, twist or something.
Okay.
That happens towards the end of the film.
Yep. So I went to it 2 nights ago.
Right.
And so all I'll say about that is I felt that it was a twist too far. Anyone who's seen it will know. All right. There's one twist and then it's followed by another twist. And I didn't really think it was needed, to be honest. Okay. Yeah. And I know I've discussed it with Murph and Murph agrees.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. What made me just cry with laughter was that a couple of weeks ago, when neither of us had seen it, a mutual friend of ours who we were having a cup of coffee with, who works in the film industry, said, and it was no disrespect to His Holiness. It was when the Pope was first in real trouble, health-wise.
The actual Pope. Right.
And our friend said, I just don't know how this is going to affect Conclave's Oscars campaign. And I thought, that is so funny, but also, wow, yeah, I don't know.
Isn't that funny? So that
Conclave won 1 Oscar for like best adapted screenplay or something.
Yeah,
so.
right. So that thought obviously had never crossed my mind. But the other thought that had never crossed my mind, which I felt a bit like, God, why had you never thought about that? It had just never crossed my mind that Conclave would be an absolute political hotbed of factions and of course it is, of course. But I just had never actually thought about it. And so I thought it was brilliantly done.
I thought, okay, so I have never really thought about how the conclave works either. And that is what the film achieves, something really unusual, largely through outstanding performances. It captures an event in which nothing physically or visually interesting happens.
Yeah, although they make it visually interesting because all those the outfits are so incredible.
Yeah. And Isabella Rossellini, I mean, the definition of the Bechdel test is, does one woman talk to another woman about something that isn't a man?
Yeah.
At any point during the drama. And so I think this film would fail the Bechdel test because there's a brief conversation between Isabella Rossellini and another nun, but it's about a dude, so yeah.
But a bit like Rogue Heroes, the setting is inherently...
It's not going to be a diverse film, but...
It'd be like going a convent set film didn't meet, there was no dudes.
Right. But like it's, the real heartbeat of it and the tension, and this is kind of a remarkable thing to be able to make television or a movie out of, is the voting. Like, because it's like the tick of a clock. And I thought, I didn't know, I mean, I'm very interested in electoral systems.
Yeah.
But this one is full of drama and tension because they're sequestered. They are all locked in until they elect a new pope.
Yeah.
The lobbying is kind of fluid. There's this incredible scene where the Ralph Fiennes character, he's the sort of the manager of the conclave, but he finds himself with some support as for the papacy. There's one point where he's saying to this other cardinal, I don't want your vote. Give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
And the other cardinal says, and that is why you continue to have it. And so there's these layers and layers of ambition and venality and imperfect men. And the kind of the regular chime that occurs again and again through the film is them voting. Yeah. And they all in this room write down the name of the cardinal that they're voting for. There's no speeches or campaigns or anything like that. They just go into the room, they all write a name on a piece of paper, they fold it and pop it into the jar, and then the votes get called out one by one and put into piles. And there is an ebb and flow of support for each candidate. There's no talking in between the voting rounds. Sometimes they break for the day and then there's furious kind of factional gatherings and so on. I can't believe they've made a film out of it, but it's a complete success.
It was really interesting. Ralph Fiennes was excellent. And the other person whose performance I really enjoyed in that was John Lithgow.
Oh, yeah, right.
Who actually I was reflecting later. I mean, I was just thinking how every single thing I've ever seen him in, I feel like he's just always excellent. He always just brings something great. But his career's been bookended by playing two problematic men of the cloth.
Right.
From the priest in the minister in Footloose to this dude. Anyway, he was looking very old. I just Googled to check how old he is, and he's 79. I thought he was maybe mid-80s. He just had that look of, when people hit a certain age, it's like their whole face kind of drops. I almost couldn't recognise it was John Lithgow. Yeah, he was very gaunt, but he was just fantastic. I really thought he was terrific too. I enjoyed it a lot.
What I loved about it? I don't know, sometimes with films I get worried that the movie industry is just like has entered this sort of formulaic stage where they're like, this time let's get this action hero to fight this action hero, those sort of big Marvel franchises where originality doesn't seem to be a real priority. I just think I love that somebody was bold enough to make a film about a process that isn't very visual and just through performance and writing.
Well, I guess maybe they felt secure because it was based on a book by Robert Harris, who's one of the world's biggest selling authors, right? So
and,
you feel like
chock a block with stars,
yeah,
I guess.
exactly.
Yeah.
But my friend George, who saw it before me, said to me, it feels like how films used to feel. Like it felt more like a film that would have been
like that
nominated
too.
for the Academy Awards in the 90s or the late 80s. It felt like a proper, serious, well-structured, well-written, beautifully shot piece of work.
And I hesitate to use the word groundbreaking, but it felt a bit like, oh, isn't filmmaking incredible? Like,
yeah.
And there really are limitless opportunities.
And it was 2 hours, which for my taste is still slightly too long, but it wasn't 3 hours, for which I was grateful. But that was the second time I've been to the cinema in the past few weeks, because I also went to see Bridget Jones' Mad About the Boy.
Look, I mean, they should be on a double bill, those films.
I really enjoyed it. So the first thing I enjoyed about it, which was kind of actually resonant a bit with the content of the film, was the original Bridget Jones Diary I saw in London in a cinema in Leicester Square with one of my friends.
Right.
And I went to this with the same friend.
Oh, that's cool.
25 years later. So that was actually really lovely. And then the film itself, because that character, it's like, 25 years that we've been hanging out with Bridget Jones, and she's got her little kind of chorus of friends, the same group of people that were in the original film are there, and Hugh Grant's there and whatnot. It feels like you're seeing old friends, and also what's happened in Bridget Jones' life is like what happens in everyone's life as you get older, which is you become a creature of loss. And her dad's died,
Yep.
and it's no spoiler because it's established from the opening. Colin Firth's died, and so now she's a single mother. I mean, they had to kill off poor Colin because Bridget Jones, of course, fails the Bechdel test because it's all about how women can't be fulfilled unless they are married, and so. They get rid of Colin Firth so she can have a couple of other flings. But as with the the content is actually quite touching. It did feel like, you're just seeing a kind of beloved friend. And also, as you know, I goddamn love Hugh Grant, and he just delivered. He was so great. I just couldn't love him more. And I think, had a hand in the development of his character, and they've done a great job with that. And it's so kind of believable that that's how a dude like that turns out, which is he's had a kid kind of later in life, but it's been a bit of a fling, and he hasn't ended up with the mother, and then he's lost contact with the kid. But now he's getting on, Hugh Grant's getting on, and he's kind of regretting, like, oh, what if I've made some bad choices here and I'm going to be alone. And
so it's turning into Mamma Mia, basically.
Yeah, and I need to kind of try to make amends. But he's still very naughty and saucy and full of hilarious lines.
Okay, so you liked it?
I liked it a lot, yeah. It was great, yeah. Not groundbreaking or anything, but just a pleasant couple of hours in the company of some characters that you know and love.
Great, all right. Yeah. Well, I'll probably watch it when it's available in my own home, maybe, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. One last...
Also, a few minutes ago you said cliche number 2 that I want to talk about. Can you remember what that was about?
Okay.
I mean, it's so rare that I actually remember to follow up on something, but my notes say... Cliche number 2.
Cliche number 2 is, and I thought about this because...
this is lady cliches?
No, it's generic cliches.
Oh, okay.
I thought about it because it happened in White Lotus when I was watching an episode when I woke up early this morning. The way actors take pills on TV shows, I have never seen anyone ever take a pill like that. Okay, there's 2 ways that they do it. They do this.
Oh,
do you take a pill like that?
No, never.
Absolutely
of course.
not.
And I saw someone do it on camera recently.
It was in White Lotus.
That's right,
Yeah.
it was. It was,
Yeah.
and I had exactly the same
Same
thought.
reaction. The other
It's
way...
like recipe books that say caramelize onions. This will take about 5 minutes. No,
The other
it
way...
takes an hour.
The other
people.
cliche for how they take them is this.
Nobody does that. Like, I mean,
Why every actor, when they take a pill on screen, they do one of those 2 things: no water and or
My
water.
mind is blown.
They still do the gulp, and then they like stroke their throat.
does throat stroking
Do you
help?
take a pill like this?
No, I do not.
That's how I take it. I don't do any of the histrionics about.
God, maybe this. I mean,
What is that
I mean, let
about?
us know. Anyone who's been to drama school, like,
Is there a rule that you have
a-
to take a pill like an absolute
Wow.
idiot? Yeah,
Okay,
it's
all
very,
right.
very strange.
That is
I've
so
never-
funny because, I couldn't remember where I'd seen it, but I knew I'd seen it recently.
Yeah.
And it annoyed me at the time because I'm like, dry swallowing a pill is incredibly difficult.
It is, but also when you do it, you don't. I don't toss my head.
Would
It's
that even,
ridiculous.
like, how much, momentum are
Wouldn't
you
that
actually...
make it harder?
are you? I mean, how much momentum does a microgram weighing pill
Totally. But you watch it
accumulate as your head goes back?
now
Hardly any.
now that I've mentioned it, you watch now
Oh,
every time a
God.
character on TV or film takes a pill, all the affectations that come with it. It's real. No one ever just puts it on their tongue and takes a swallow of water. It's really, really strange.
It's like smoking, theatrical smoking. Anyway, but we could talk about a million things.
What last bit of new TV that I wanted to talk about, and just briefly, is Kunk on Life.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Oh my God, I find her so funny. So this is kind of a film length. What was the last one called? Kunk on the Universe? Kunk on Earth?
Kunk on Earth.
Yeah. So this is another one. It's full of the same just bloody hilarious lines. So there was a couple I wrote down, one which will give you a flavour of it. One was, God created the entire universe in 7 days. That may seem a lot, but unlike us, he wasn't constantly interrupted with iPhone notifications. And then the other thing that struck me yet again was, I do not understand how these academics, even though they've been briefed to not react, I mean, maybe they fix it in the editing, I don't know, and they shoot multiple takes, but how they keep a straight face at some of the stuff that she asks. I know they've been told to play it straight, but nonetheless, like there was one academic where the question she asked him was, so let me turn to some serious scientific issues. When a human dies and turns into a ghost, what hole does the ghost come out of, north or south? And he just replied with a completely straight face, I don't consider ghosts a serious scientific topic. It was just wild.
I don't know. There's a magic to her, and it's just glorious.
Oh.
And what I like about it, I think, is that some of the humor is very sophisticated, and the whole persona is her tone and her expression are just razor sharp.
Yeah.
Which is innately funny when she's being so stupid, and dense. But it's very, very endearing. But the thing that I really love is that even though a lot of it is quite sophisticated humour, a heap of it is just so aggressively dumb and childish.
Oh,
like
totally.
the fact that she keeps trying to get somebody to say arseholes. Like, so he says, so it'll be like, so what happens to our souls? And she's just trying to get some,
our souls.
some bishop to say arseholes. Like, and there's something so childishly stupid and fulfilling about that.
The other thing
Remember when you read that book, Our Souls?
Oh, that's
at
right.
Night?
You kept going on about
I know.
assholes at night.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, why would you call a book that? And you were like, what do you mean? I'm like, assholes at night. And you're like, you're a child. I'm like, yes.
The other thing that always makes me laugh, even though you know it's coming and they probably use it a bit too much, is when she always refers to that song and then they just cut to pump up the jam, pump. It's just so ridiculous and out of the blue.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you liked
it.
Kunk on Earth, you're definitely going to be into Kunk on Life as well.
And you did that annoying thing was when you were watching it, you were just hammering me and Murph with kind of messages about like, and now she said this. It's just like, it's actually it's the only way you can really unfunny Kunk is to have Lee Sales live texting you highlights. You're just
I
like,
can't help it because I'll just
know.
be laughing so hard at it. And I just think, they need to know this because it's really
I can
funny.
sense you snotting yourself at the other end, like, two quick things.
Yes.
I've been doing just like so much kind of work-related reading, and I'm guessing that, electoral history is not, anyway, I want it to be a lovely surprise when the show comes out. So, but still massively enjoying Ezra Klein. Why We're
great. Oh, you're into
Polarised.
that. Great.
So useful.
It's so
useful.
clever, right?
And a friend of ours sent, I think both of us, a link to an article in medium.com, which I found so profoundly insightful and important. The article is called, what is it called? Oh, come on. It's called People Are the New Brands.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about why podcasts are kind of becoming this superpower. It's a little bit about Joe Rogan. And the theory is that people aren't, because there are so many lonely people in the world, there's a terrifying figure about in the US, the fact that 17% of Americans now say that they do not have even one friend. Which is up from like 2% 20 years earlier. It's incredible. And this sort of great modern tragedy that we've never found it easier to be in contact with people, and yet simultaneously so lonely. What a chilling statistic that is. But so the theory behind this article is that that people are drawn to faces and voices of humans rather than CNN or NBC. You know, so they respond to images and tiles that have humans in it, and they become comforted by hearing the same voice, you know, telling them about X, Y, or Z, which is the Joe Rogan kind of phenomenon, right? And obviously it has a lived effect in terms of political belief, political practice, and so on. So I found it a very useful article to read while I was thinking about all of these things. Can I also quickly say 2 books? One, I read Nikki Gemmel's book Wing.
I've been wanting to
over
read
Christmas. I've got more Christmas books that I couldn't cram into my Crabb's Summer of Culture, and I'll be feeding them out. But I thought it was a terrific book. It captured so much about a particular kind of group of people, private school mums with daughters. The storyline is as a woman who's the principal of a girls' school, pretty posh girls' school. They go on a camp. 4 girls go for a hike with a staff member and they disappear. So it's a bit picnic and hang rock.
Yeah.
But the kind of there's a complication. One of the girls is the daughter of the headmaster's best friend with whom she's had a horrific falling out. So she has to face her best friend who she's had a falling out with in the worst possible circumstances. It is incredibly tense, beautifully written and realised. I just think it's a cracking book.
That sounds good.
So there's that. And also, the other day at Adelaide Writers' Week, I met Ben Shuri, the chef, who I've not met before. I saw him on Chef's Table. He's got a great episode of Chef's Table in the first series.
Yeah,
I loved it because there's this point where he's Kiwi born on a sheep, sheep country. And there's this moment in the Chef's Table where he goes, he's tasting something. He goes, yeah, needs more lemon, eh? And I thought, we've got an Aussie A into the Chef's Table, the most elite kind of beautiful series. It's a cracking book. It's called Uses for Obsession. It's a little bit obviously about food, but it's mainly just about, I found it interesting learning about the strange things that this guy's brain gets up to. He's obviously highly, highly creative, very passionate, super perfectionist, will make a dish 1,000 times before he's prepared to put it, on a menu, but also very, very funny. He's a terrific writer. And he starts with this anecdote about going to cook for some really very posh, big hotel in Italy, and they start pissing him off, and all the things that they've promised haven't shown up. He's smuggled 30 kilograms of beef tongues in his hand luggage with him that are leaking on the way. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous and funny. And then his mode of revenge on this hotel is to nick their hand soaps that they refresh every day, and by the end of it, he's going back several times a day, as is his assistant chef. As soon as the rooms get refreshed with soap, he goes and nicks them again. Anyway, it's so childish and so obsessive and brilliant. I loved it, and I really enjoyed meeting him.
You're the second person who's mentioned that book to me as being really, really good.
Yeah, because the bit that got extracted in the papers was the chapter where he has a big go at the millinery-based restaurant review system in Australia. He has a real go at restaurant reviewers. A pretty courageous act, really, because that's cutting off his own nose. But so that created a real stir when the book came out. But it would be wrong to assume that is what the whole book is about. It's just, and one of the most interesting parts is when he talks about the influence of Kitchen Confidential. That Anthony Bourdain book from years ago all about
that was very influential.
Right, and it never been out of print since.
Right.
And he has a really interesting take on it. He says, I loathed that book. I loathed the culture that it celebrated. It really is responsible for a lot of the worst things about restaurant kitchen culture. Which I found refreshing to read that perspective. And
It does. It was so influential, that book, that I just assumed that all restaurant kitchens are full include a chef who's going to scream at you, who's going to be kind of on the edge because they've slept for about 3 hours every night.
and like very big drug culture, drinking culture, and so on. And Shuri writes about this really perceptively, and he also explains how he actively took the decision to make his kitchen not like that.
Oh, interesting.
It's a terrific book. I really, very readable.
I really want us. I've never been to his restaurant, and I really want us as a treat for ourselves when we go to Melbourne later this year for a show to book to go and eat at that restaurant the night before. Go down one day early and then go.
Yeah,
and eat
all right.
there.
Well,
have you eaten there?
Never.
Oh, great.
I'd love to.
Let's try and do it.
Have you just asked me out on a dinner date? Lovely.
Mentioning Melbourne reminds me to plug our Brisbane and Sydney shows, which are the first live shows of the year. Brisbane on the 9th of May, Sydney in mid-June. Brisbane's at QPAC, Sydney's at the Enmore. So just jump online, Google Chat 10.
Be quick.
And then can I just quickly do a very rapid rip around of a few tying up loose ends of things I read and followed up from you, and then one thing that I read myself. I was sent a book to read called The Usual Desire to Kill by Camilla Barnes. It's either out or about to be out.
Great title.
It's awesome. And the title's even better when you know what the book's about. The book is about a couple of middle-aged women who have to go and visit their aging parents who are driving them insane. Hence the usual desire to kill. It's beautifully written. It's hilarious. It unfolds in a terrific way. I could not have loved it more. And so look, you will love it. So look out for it. The Usual Desire to Kill by Camilla Barnes. Then just quickly wanted to mention a couple of other things. One was you mentioned maybe, I can't remember if it's the end of last year or first podcast of the year, a book called The Details by Aya Gebbeck, which I read. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Get your hands on it. So many people in Chat 10 would love that book.
Right. It's remarkable. And I told you my sister-in-law recommended it.
And read it twice in a row.
Yeah, she said she got to the end. She's like, no, I'm going to start reading it.
Yeah, I'll definitely reread it. It's basically a woman recollecting some key people she's met over the course of her life. Absolutely superb. I did go back to and finish Breeders as well.
Okay.
And again, my relationship with the Martin Freeman character. So I put it aside because I could not tolerate one more bar of him. He was driving me mad. And then you said, oh, wait till you get to the episode where the mother's group comes around and they reveal that the reason they've lost touch with her is because they didn't like him, Paul. I kind of went back to it, and then strangely enough, what happened, the final season of that is really, really good. But it was like I was almost became like Ally with Paul, where I just grew to tolerate him and kind of had a regard for him and felt like, oh, he's a good guy at heart. He's just tricky. He's a tricky character. And so I ended up coming bit like with Don Draper, this kind of full circle to the character where I could then kind of tolerate being around him.
Isn't that interesting? I'm so pleased.
I thought it was an excellent show.
It's remarkable television. I just think it's
Disney
really
Plus.
Yeah.
I also watched The Split, which there's a kind of short, I guess what you
I've
call
never watched The Split, and some people say it's terrific. So
I find it kind of just okay. It was like a sort of, I think, a limited. I can't remember if it was 2 episodes or one long one, but it was like a special where they go to Spain for one of the characters' weddings. I found it really quite annoying. It's just one of those shows where all it ever is about, even though everyone has interesting lives and jobs, it's all about are they having a romance with anyone? Every single character is about that. So it's just boring in my view.
Okay. Good to know.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was a podcast that I've listened to a few times called Ladies We Have to Talk, which is hosted by Yumi Steins, which for some reason...
It's been going forever.
Yeah. For some reason, I kind of had thought, it doesn't really seem like my bag. I wouldn't be interested in it. And then I listened to a few in a row and felt like, God, they do a fantastic job of this, of exploring these issues in a really broad 360 kind of way, a huge diverse range of issues, but often things that I feel like, oh yeah, my friends are talking about that at the moment, like really plugged into what I think women are talking about in all sorts of age groups. It's just very, very well done.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so there you go.
Thinking about ABC podcasts reminds me too that with, election fever, ABC is now doing like daily politics feeds, like hot off the press analysis with Politics Now, hosted by Patricia, but featuring all sorts of ABC folk. So get stuck into that.
And on election night, of course, you do not want to miss watching ABC because Anthony Green's last federal election. Oh, the legend.
It's actually a bit upsetting. Like, I reckon this one will be my fifth with Anthony. I mean, my fifth overall election night broadcast. You're not there this time, which is sad. But
Well, not for me.
It's his 11th federal election. But he's done hundreds of state ones as well.
Incredible.
Yeah, I really like that interview that you did with him, which I think is probably still on the website somewhere.
Looking back over his career, and it's a great archive stuff.
I just am so moved by that story, just because he was this sort of, pommy immigrant, maths nerd, a bit bored with his job, saw an ad in the paper for researchers for the ABC, came in, it was like 150 applicants, and Ian Carroll hired him, the late Ian Carroll, and he's just kind of become this really significant institution more than just a human. And I think he's done a lot to assist with understanding of our electoral system.
Hugely.
And I know that he's super respected by the Australian Electoral Commission. I mean, we have an extraordinary democratic system in this country, totally unique. Watch my series on it, which is coming up. But he's just one of those figures who has made it better.
Incredible, unique skill set and ability to crunch all that stuff and do the computer programming, but also explain it in a way that you can understand what he's talking about and these complex things. Really, really incredible. And I mean, I just think an incredible public servant, and who, to me, typifies the best of what people who work at the ABC should typify, which is couldn't fault his private behaviour. He's never embarrassed the network. And, despite the hours of live broadcasting under the most extreme pressure, and I would have absolutely no idea how that man votes, despite having worked with him for about 30 years.
Yeah,
he
me
is
neither.
meticulous in his conduct, and just absolutely awesome. It'll be a sad night to see him call his final one.
Yeah, he hates the attention too, but he's going to get some of it, yeah.
All right, see you tomorrow.
All right, back to work.